A rising star. The roaring crowd inside Madison Arena reached an ear-splitting crescendo as the final seconds ticked down. The scoreboard flashed 101-98, and all eyes were on Jalen Carter, a 6'7" powerhouse dribbling at the three-point line. A quick crossover sent his defender stumbling. With 1 second left, Jalen took the shot. The ball arced gracefully through the air before swishing through the net. The buzzer sounded. Game over. Victory. Jalen didn't celebrate like the others. He took a deep breath, clenched his fists, and allowed himself only a small nod of satisfaction. He had done this before. The real work, the work that mattered, didn't happen on the court. It happened off it. The man behind the athlete. At 29 years old, Jalen Carter was more than just a basketball icon. He was a 3-time MVP, a championship winner, and the highest-paid athlete on his team. But beneath the fame and million-dollar endorsements, he was still the kid from Southside Chicago, raised by a single mother who worked double shifts to keep food on the table. Jalen's 6 feet, 7 inches frame was carved from years of relentless training. His deep brown skin glistened with sweat after every game, and his sharp jawline, often hidden behind a neatly trimmed beard, had become a signature look. His eyes, though, held the most weight, a mix of wisdom, resilience, and something unspoken. Unlike many of his peers, Jalen wasn't the flashy type. He didn't flaunt his wealth, drive exotic cars, or party until dawn. Instead, he spent his time mentoring young athletes from his old neighborhood, ensuring they had opportunities he never did. A day in the life of Jalen Carter. Jalen's mornings began before sunrise. At 5:30 a.m., he was already at the gym, pushing his body to its limits. 2 hours of intense training later, he'd grab a protein shake and head home, where his mother, Angela Carter, was often waiting. "Don't forget where you came from," she always told him. He never did. By 10 a.m., he was in meetings, either discussing brand deals, handling charity initiatives, or planning summer basketball camps for underprivileged kids. By noon, he'd be back at practice. His life was a cycle of dedication, discipline, and purpose. Yet, despite all his efforts, the media never let him escape one persistent narrative that he was too serious, too quiet, or not flashy enough to be a true superstar. Critics constantly compared him to athletes who showed off their wealth, questioning whether Jalen was truly relatable, foreshadowing the conflict. Despite his success, Jalen couldn't shake the feeling that no matter what he did, it was never enough. Not for the media, not for the fans, not even for some of his fellow players. "You should enjoy your money more, man," one of his teammates had told him in the locker room. "You act like you're still broke." Jalen had simply smiled. He had his own way of enjoying life, by giving back. What he didn't know was that his biggest act of generosity was just around the corner, and not everyone would appreciate it. A decision that changes everything. Jalen sat in his private study, a modest room in his high-rise apartment overlooking downtown Chicago. It wasn't filled with expensive artwork or flashy memorabilia, just a few framed pictures, championship rings on a shelf, and a single worn-out basketball from his high school days. On his laptop screen was an article about Lincoln Youth Center, a community facility struggling to stay open. It was where he had learned to play basketball as a kid, where he had spent hours dribbling on cracked pavement, pretending to be his heroes. The center was on the verge of shutting down. Underfunded, overlooked, forgotten. Jalen leaned back, exhaling deeply. He had seen stories like this before, dreams cut short because of lack of resources. That's when he made his decision. He picked up his phone and dialed his manager, Darius Ford. "I want to donate," Jalen said, his voice firm. Enough to keep the center running for the next 10 years. There was silence on the other end. Darius finally said, "We're talking about millions." "I know. Look, man, I respect what you're doing, but this is going to get attention. The media, the fans. Some people are going to say you're doing this for PR." Jalen chuckled dryly. "Let them talk. This isn't for them." Within days, the announcement was made. Jalen Carter was donating $5 million to Lincoln Youth Center. The immediate reaction. The news spread like wildfire. Social media exploded with mixed reactions. "This is incredible. Jalen Carter always gives back. Much respect. A real role model." See? This is what athletes should be doing with their money. But the positivity was quickly overshadowed by skepticism and criticism. The backlash begins. ESPN analysts debated whether the donation was a genuine act of charity or a calculated move to improve his image. A well-known sports commentator, Todd McAllister, smirked on air. I mean, come on. $5 million? Look, I'm not saying Jalen Carter isn't a good guy, but let's not pretend this isn't a PR stunt. Athletes do this all the time when they want to clean up their image. Another guest chimed in, and let's be real, he doesn't even have kids. Why is he donating to a youth center? Maybe he's trying to stay relevant. Twitter was even worse. If Jalen really cared, he wouldn't have announced it. This is just another rich athlete looking for praise. Bet he writes this off on his taxes. Jalen's reaction. Sitting in the back of a black SUV after practice, Jalen scrolled through his phone, reading the comments. Darius, sitting beside him, sighed. I told you this would happen. Jalen locked his phone. So what? I didn't do this for them. Darius nodded. Yeah, but when the media starts twisting the story, it stops being about what you did and starts being about what people think you did. Jalen stared out the window. He had expected some negativity, but he hadn't expected people to question his character. His mother's words echoed in his mind. Don't forget where you came from. That was impossible, because the world never let him forget. The backlash escalates. The criticism wasn't slowing down. It was getting louder. TV segments dissected his donation, debating whether it was sincere or just a calculated PR move. Some sports analysts accused him of seeking attention because he wasn't the most exciting player in the league. Others claimed he was trying to buy goodwill instead of being more entertaining like other superstars. But the worst came from social media. A viral tweet from a sports blogger read, "Why is Jalen Carter donating to a youth center instead of building a business? Teach kids how to make money, not play basketball. This is lazy activism." Another comment under a news article said, "Athletes should stick to playing ball. If he really cared, he wouldn't have announced the donation. Feels fake." The hate wasn't just from random internet trolls. A retired player, DeAndre Willis, who had once been a league MVP, made headlines when he posted, "Let's be real, a $5 million donation is a tax break. Stop acting like it's charity. Real legends don't need validation." Jalen was stunned. DeAndre was someone he had looked up to as a kid. Now, he was publicly discrediting him. Not everyone was against Jalen. His real supporters saw through the negativity. Former teammate and longtime friend Marcus Fields defended him on ESPN. "This is ridiculous," Marcus said. "Jalen has always given back. He's been running free basketball camps since his rookie year. He didn't have to donate $5 million. He chose to. And now people want to question his character? It's disgusting." On Instagram, legendary NBA Hall of Famer coach Ray Bennett posted a photo of Jalen with a group of kids at the Lincoln Youth Center. "This man changed lives with one decision. Haters will always talk. Let them. Real ones know the truth." Despite the backlash, the community was grateful. Parents of kids at Lincoln Youth Center posted heartfelt messages. One mother wrote, "Jalen Carter just gave my son a chance to dream again. That's not a PR stunt. That's kindness." Another father shared, "My boy was ready to quit basketball because our center was closing. Thanks to Jalen. He's got a gym to play in again." The responses were powerful, but they didn't silence the critics. Jalen's inner struggle. Jalen tried to ignore the negativity. He told himself it didn't matter. But late at night, sitting in his apartment, he found himself questioning everything. Was Darius right? He thought. Did I make a mistake by going public with the donation? Should I have done this differently? He grabbed his phone and hovered over DeAndre Willis's post. He wanted to respond, to defend himself. Instead, he tossed the phone on the couch. His mother, Angela Carter, called a few minutes later. She didn't mention the controversy. Instead, she said, "Did you see the news today?" Jalen sighed. "Yeah, Ma. I saw it." "No," she said. "Not that nonsense. Did you see the interview with the kids at the center?" Jalen frowned. "No." Angela sent him a link. Jalen clicked it. A local news station had interviewed a group of kids at Lincoln Youth Center. A boy, maybe 12 years old, stood in front of the camera. Before Jalen Carter helped us, I thought nobody cared about kids like me, the boy said, eyes full of emotion. Now, I know someone does. Jalen sat there, staring at the screen. The criticism didn't matter. This did. Still, he knew he couldn't stay silent forever. Something had to be done. The breaking point. Jalen had taken the high road for weeks, ignoring the negativity, refusing to engage. But when he woke up to yet another headline questioning his integrity, something in him snapped. Jalen Carter's generosity, a strategic move or just a tax write-off? The article was filled with baseless speculation, painting him as a calculating businessman rather than a compassionate human being. He slammed his phone down. Enough. That evening, Jalen sat across from Taylor Reese, a respected sports journalist, for a one-on-one interview. Unlike the tabloid-style reporters, Taylor had a reputation for honesty. The turning point. Jalen speaks out. The cameras rolled. Jalen, Taylor began, let's address the elephant in the room. Your donation to Lincoln Youth Center. It should have been a moment of celebration. Instead, some people have accused you of doing this for publicity. How do you respond to that? Jalen exhaled. He had spent weeks holding in his frustration, but now? He was done playing it safe. Look, he said, leaning forward. I didn't donate to Lincoln Youth Center for the media. I didn't do it for a headline. I did it because that place saved my life. Taylor nodded, letting him continue. I was one of those kids, running around with worn-out sneakers, dodging gangs, trying to find something to believe in. That center? It gave me hope when nothing else did. And now people want to question why I gave back? That's crazy to me. Taylor paused before asking, so what do you say to those who claim this was a tax move? Jalen chuckled, shaking his head. Man, let's be real. I've been making millions for years. You think I need a tax write-off that bad? Come on. The rawness in his voice made the moment undeniably real. The unexpected twist. Taylor glanced at her notes. Some of your critics include former athletes, like DeAndre Willis. He called your donation performative. What's your response to that? Jalen looked directly into the camera. I grew up idolizing DeAndre, he admitted. But I learned something. Not everyone wants to see you win your way. Some people want you to follow their blueprint. And if you don't, they'll tear you down. The room went silent. Let me be clear, Jalen continued. I don't need to flex my wealth. I don't need to be flashy to prove my success. I know who I am. And if helping kids makes me a target for criticism, so be it. I'll take that every single time. The interview ended, but the impact was just beginning. Within an hour, clips from Jalen's interview flooded the internet. This is the realest thing I've heard from an athlete in a long time. At SportsFan87, Jalen Carter just shut down the haters with pure truth. At Hoops Daily. But the most surprising reaction? DeAndre Willis issued a public apology. A public apology. The next morning, the sports world was buzzing with something no one expected. DeAndre Willis had released a statement. Through his social media, the retired star posted, I was wrong about Jalen Carter. After watching his interview, I realized I judged a man who is actually doing real work for his community. Respect. The internet erupted. Some called it a weak attempt at saving face, while others saw it as genuine growth. Either way, the damage had been done. The narrative had shifted. Jalen's response. Jalen's mother, Angela, called him early that morning. Did you see what DeAndre posted? Jalen sipped his morning coffee, looking out over the city skyline. Yeah. And? She pressed. He exhaled. I don't need an apology. I just need people to understand why I do what I do. Angela smiled. I think they're starting to. The impact on the community. A week later, Jalen made a surprise visit to Lincoln Youth Center. The moment he stepped into the gym, he was greeted with cheers from the kids, coaches, and parents. Posters with "Thank you, Jalen" were plastered across the walls. A young boy, no older than 10, ran up to him, holding a basketball. Can you teach me your crossover move? Jalen grinned. Only if you promise to work on your free throws too. For the next few hours, he coached, laughed, and played alongside the kids. In that moment, none of the criticism mattered. This was why he had done it. A final reflection. That night, Jalen sat alone in his apartment, scrolling through his phone. The same media that had questioned his motives was now praising his resilience. But to him, it was never about proving people wrong. It was about proving something to himself, that he could use his platform to make a difference, no matter what anyone said. As he set his phone down, he thought about the future. Maybe this was just the beginning.